Alright guys, so the gloss coat has set. This board is pretty much rideable. It's done. It's ready for the water, technically. Now, if you want a completely pro job though, you do need to sand off any imperfections. Now you could just leave this board and go ride it and it's great. But I'm going to sand off any of the dust that kind of got in with the gloss coat. Even though this is super smooth, there's just little tiny specks occasionally in it. And just to rub those down with some sandpaper will just make it super smooth. Although this is like beautiful. This deck, I could probably go without sanding this and people wouldn't even notice, but I would notice. But I want this to be just a bit more smoother, just get rid of that dust. So I'm going to sand off also some spots where I had to fill in, I had a few fish eyes and I filled them in with some epoxy. So I'm going to sand those down a bit and blend it in with the rest of the board. But yeah, so this video is basically going to be me mostly sanding, minor sanding actually, and I'm going to wet sand the whole board. That'll keep the dust down, and I'm going to be using really high grits of sandpaper, so that's why I have to wet sand it. So I'm going to probably start off with like something like a 300 or 320, or maybe even a 400 grit, and take it up to maybe 1,000 and then maybe polish it. Unfortunately, once you sand the board, it's never going to come back to a polish as super shiny as right after the gloss coat, unless you put a bunch of elbow grease in it and sand it up to say 2,000 grit. But because my boards get ridden, they get used, they get driven into the sand, I'm not going to bother to take it all the way up to a super high gloss again. It's not meant for the showroom. It's not meant to catch people's eyes when you're at the surf shop and, you know, to grab people's attention so that you buy it. For me, this is totally so that I can ride it. So as much as a nice shiny board is nice to show off, it's not, for me, it's not worth that extra bit of effort. But if for you, if you want to do that, you totally can just put the elbow grease into it and make the board as super shiny as you like. Okay, I'm gonna sand now, and this board will be done. I had a little high spot here, so I sanded that down. The rest of the bottom looks really good, so that's good for there. And then can't really see it on the other side because of the lighting, but on this side here, you can see that I've gotten rid of the sanded down the tape line. Now I'm going to flatten everything. Smooth it all out, just any little bumps. But before I do that, back here, I have to, see if we can see here. We had that really nice tape dam, so we need to clean this up. So I'm going to sand this down and make this into a nice hard rail, as mentioned before during the hot coat and in the other videos. So I'll do that on that bottom 20 inches or so of the back of the rail, which then blends into the rest of the rounded rail. So nice hard angle back here. All right, now that we have all those high little bumps all sanded off all across the board, any little spots where there was a little bit of raised where I had to maybe fix a fisheye or something, it was really only around the top, or the front of the board. The rear is pretty good. And then, of course, at the rear, where the fins are, the rail was squared off really nicely. I had lots of epoxy buildup, so I never sand it through into the paint, so that's great. Nice little transition here from the soft to the hard rail. So now all that's left to do is to give this an overall sanding, and what I'll probably do is I'll wet sand this because this is so flat already, except for that one little high spot I had here. So what I'll do is I'll get a little water, and I'll probably start off with around, I might do a 220 first, and then I'll hit it with maybe a 3 something and then a 400. And at that point, people often leave a board at 400 as a satin finish, but I'm going to definitely take it up higher than that. I want a little bit of a shine, but not all the way to a really super polished mirror finish gloss, because it just takes so much elbow grease. But completely up to you. So I took the board outside to wet sand it so it would keep the mess down with the water. So that's all of the sanding done. I didn't show a whole lot of it because it's really boring to watch and it's really exactly the same thing. Originally I had said I was going to use much finer grit because I thought I could get away with it, but I ended up not being able to do that. So I went back to a 220 to flatten everything, to get rid of any little orange peel that I kind of had, waviness of the board. Then I went from 220 up to 320 or 360 maybe, and then I went 600, 800, 1000, and then up to 1500 grit. Very fine sandpaper, and you find that sandpaper in the automotive section at your local hardware store or automotive place, in the body shop area, I guess. And then after we're done all that, if you want a super high gloss, you might want to take it up to a 2500 grit. And then you need to hit it with a polishing compound, and this is a Meguiar's. It's Meguiar's Ultimate Compound. I really like this stuff. I've tried Mother's. I find this one gives me the best result. This really brings a nice glossiness to the board. This won't be as, like I said before, as glossy as if it was just epoxy, because there's no actual sand marks in the epoxy. It's just, you know, a nice liquid finish, you could almost say. So we're gonna have to just hit the board with this, and it'll take it up to a nice shine. I'm not that concerned with a showroom finish because I'm not selling this board. I'm not showing it off. It's not gonna just sit over there and people are gonna look at it. I'm going to take this out and ride it. It's going to get dinged up. It'll get sand grinded on it. It just doesn't, the sun's going to hit it. If it was glossy, it's not going to keep that gloss for, you know, over the long period of time anyway. So you can see here, it's starting to get shine. The board's getting glossy, so it's looking nice. I'm not gonna go crazy with it. I see a few spots where the board isn't completely even, but I'm gonna leave it. Won't really affect it at all. It's just, it would just take more sanding, and I'm tired of sanding, but it's looking really nice. I'm super happy with it. So I'm just gonna give this a quick polish all the way over, flip it over, do the other side, and then that should about do it until I do the pinstripe. So one quick thing about the deck, right here. From here down, I kind of cheated. Now, I sanded it and I got it smooth, but I didn't really bother to polish this all that much, just because it takes more elbow grease. This section here is going to get covered up either with a traction pad or wax, so there's really no sense in spending a lot of time on this unless you want to. Completely up to you. But I'm not going to bother. It already looks really shiny. It looks good. But why I'm not going to bother to spend that extra elbow grease on it, because I just deem it unnecessary. And I'm going to end the video here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a pinstripe all the way around this board, because I think it would just look nice with the contrast between the black and the red and the white. It's just what I prefer. All I do is I tape it, and then I apply some, I'm going to use black spray paint. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll polish this a little bit more, and then I'll start the pinstripe.